The first thing my mother said when I answered the gate intercom was not hello. She said, "Open it, Morgan. The children have been trapped in that truck for 4 hours." Behind her stood my older sister, her unemployed husband, 3 exhausted children, 2 mattresses, 14 taped boxes, and a moving van blocking the entrance to my property. Nobody had called first. Nobody had asked permission. My sister was already pointing toward my guest cottage and explaining where she planned to place the bunk beds. Her husband wanted to know whether my workshop had enough power for his gaming equipment. My mother looked directly into the security camera and warned me not to humiliate the family on Thanksgiving weekend. 15 years earlier, those same people had forced me out of our home with one suitcase and told relatives I had chosen independence. Now that I owned a house, a renovation company, and 12 acres outside Nashville, they had decided independence meant I had extra bedrooms they could claim. They expected the frightened 19-year-old they had abandoned to open the gate. Instead, I looked at the keypad beside my hand, listened to my mother order me around from the other side, and realized something that should have occurred to me years earlier. A locked door is not cruel, simply because the wrong people are standing outside it. My name is Morgan Ellis. I am 34 years old, and I own a residential renovation company that specializes in adapting older homes for people who want to age safely without leaving the places they love. We install wider doorways, accessible bathrooms, safer kitchens, ramps that do not look like hospital equipment, and first-floor suites for parents who can no longer manage stairs. My company is called Second Story Renovations, which confuses people because most of our work involves making second stories unnecessary. The name is not about buildings, it is about people getting another chapter after life decides the first one no longer fits. I did not tell clients that part. Most people prefer discussing tile samples to childhood trauma. I grew up in a middle-class subdivision outside Lexington, Kentucky, in a yellow split-level house with white shutters and a front lawn my mother treated like a public reputation. Her name was Carol Ellis. She worked as the office manager for an orthodontist and believed appearances were a form of morality. If the living room was clean, the neighbors were impressed, and the family photographs looked cheerful, then nothing happening behind the closed bedroom doors could be serious. My sister, Lauren, was 22 months older than me, but my mother treated those 22 months like Lauren had arrived as royalty, and I had been delivered later as staff. Lauren received private cheerleading lessons because she was outgoing. I received extra chores because I was responsible. Lauren got a new winter coat when styles changed. I wore hers after the zipper broke because my mother said I cared less about fashion. Lauren's emotional outbursts were evidence that she felt deeply. Mine were evidence that I was difficult. When we shared birthdays with family friends, Lauren chose the restaurant, the cake, and the guest list because she was better at social things. I was told to be grateful that I did not have to make decisions. My father, Raymond, worked for a commercial roofing company and spent most weekdays traveling between job sites. He was not openly cruel. For years, I thought that made him innocent. He brought home paychecks, repaired things around the house, attended school ceremonies when work allowed, and occasionally slipped me $20 when my mother was not looking. But he also watched every unfair rule become permanent. He heard my mother blame me for Lauren's mistakes. He watched Lauren take my clothing, borrow my money, and claim my achievements as group efforts. Whenever I asked him to intervene, he said, "Your mother has a lot on her shoulders. Be the bigger person." I became so good at being the bigger person that I nearly disappeared. The one adult who saw me clearly was my father's sister, Aunt Ruth. She lived 40 minutes away in a small farmhouse, filled with old furniture, houseplants, and jars of screws sorted by size. Ruth had worked as a cabinet maker before arthritis forced her into early retirement. She could identify wood by smell, repair a loose chair without turning it upside down, and silence my mother with one raised eyebrow. She never said Lauren was the favorite. She did not have to. She simply gave me things nobody else offered: uninterrupted attention, practical knowledge, and space where I was not expected to apologize for existing. On Saturdays, she taught me to use a measuring tape, hand plane, drill, level, and jigsaw. She said houses told the truth if you knew where to look. Doors sticking in summer meant moisture. Cracks above windows meant stress, traveling through the frame. Fresh paint on one wall often meant somebody wanted you to stop asking what had happened behind it. Damage does not become less real because someone decorated over it, she told me. I thought she was teaching me renovation. I did not realize she was teaching me how to survive my family. Aunt Ruth died during my senior year of high school after a short illness. She left me her tools, several handwritten notebooks, and $4,000 in an account my mother could not access. Lauren received Ruth's jewelry because my mother said tools were obviously more appropriate for me. I would have traded every drill and sought to sit at Ruth's kitchen table one more time. But those tools later became the first possessions nobody could tell me I had not earned. After graduation, I enrolled in a community college construction technology program. I planned to live at home for 1 year, work evenings, and move out after saving enough for an apartment. My father agreed. My mother said she agreed. Then Lauren announced she was pregnant. She was 21, living with us after dropping out of a dental assisting program and dating a man named Derek Cole who had changed jobs 4 times in 1 year. The pregnancy immediately reorganized the entire household. My mother cried happy tears, created a baby registry, and started referring to the spare bedroom as the nursery. The problem was that our house did not have a spare bedroom. It had my bedroom. Lauren's old room had become my mother's craft room, after Lauren moved into the larger basement room. Derek wanted the basement because it had a private entrance. Lauren did not want the baby near the craft supplies. My father suggested converting part of the garage. My mother said newborns could not live near gasoline. Every solution circled the house until it arrived at the same conclusion. I was the easiest person to remove. My mother announced the decision over Sunday dinner, as though we were discussing where to store Christmas decorations. Lauren and Derek need your room, she said. The baby needs to be upstairs near the bathroom. Where am I going? I asked. You are 19. I know my age. Then you understand that most adults do not expect their parents to house them forever. You told me I could stay while I attended school. Before your sister had a medical need. Lauren placed both hands over her stomach. She was barely 10 weeks pregnant. Pregnancy is not a medical emergency, I said. My mother's fork struck the plate. Do not speak about your niece or nephew like an inconvenience. I am talking about my bedroom. Derek leaned back in his chair and said, Honestly, Morgan, this could be good for you. You seem comfortable here. He had been living in our basement without paying rent for 3 months. I looked at my father. Did you agree to this? He rubbed his forehead. It is temporary. For me or for them? Nobody answered. I asked whether I could sleep on the couch for a few weeks. Lauren said she needed the living room quiet because pregnancy made her tired. I asked about the dining room. My mother accused me of being dramatic. I asked whether they would help with an apartment deposit. My father said money was tight because the baby needed furniture. That weekend, my parents bought Lauren a new bedroom set, and Derek a used SUV because his truck was unreliable. I was given 10 days to leave. My mother told relatives I had decided I was ready for independence. She told me to use that explanation too, because being asked to grow up sounds ugly when you make it emotional. I packed my clothes, Aunt Ruth's notebooks, and as many tools as I could carry. My father loaded the heavier equipment into the back of his truck. For one hopeful moment, I believed he was helping me move somewhere safe. Instead, he drove me to a 24-hour storage facility where I had rented the smallest unit available. He helped place Ruth's tools inside, closed the metal door, and handed me the padlock. Your mother will calm down, he said. Give her time. Where am I sleeping tonight? He looked at the ground. Didn't you say your friend Amber might help? Amber's parents said I could stay 3 nights. That gives you time. Time for what? To make a plan. He hugged me beside the storage unit. I remember his work jacket scratching my cheek. Then he climbed into the truck and drove home to the bedroom my sister had already begun measuring for a crib. I stayed with Amber for 3 nights, another classmate for 4, and a coworker for 6. After that, every couch came with parents asking how long the arrangement would last. I did not blame them. They had not created the problem. I spent 2 weeks sleeping in my car, a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a rear window that did not close completely. I parked beneath lights outside a 24-hour grocery store and told security I worked the morning shift. I showered at the community college gym. I stored my uniform in a plastic bag so it would not smell like the fast food I ate inside the car. I kept Aunt Ruth's $4,000 untouched as long as possible because it was the only barrier between temporary homelessness and something worse. My mother knew. She called once, not to ask whether I was safe, but to tell me a neighbor had seen my car outside the grocery store. "People are starting to ask questions," she said. "Then tell them the truth. There is no reason to embarrass the entire family because you refuse to manage your life." I have nowhere to sleep. You had options. What options? You always reject suggestions when they do not match exactly what you want. Sleeping in a car was not what I wanted. She became quiet, then lowered her voice into the tone she used when pretending cruelty was wisdom. "Maybe being uncomfortable will finally motivate you." She ended the call. My father sent a text 20 minutes later. "Your mom says things she doesn't mean. Keep your head up." He did not offer a bed. Lauren sent nothing. 2 months later, she posted photographs from her baby shower. My old bedroom had been painted pale green. One photograph showed my mother, father, Lauren, and Derek standing beneath a banner that read, "Family is everything." I looked at it from a laundromat at 1 in the morning while waiting for my blanket to dry. That was the night I stopped hoping they would come looking for me. I completed 1 semester of community college, then withdrew because I could not maintain tuition, work, and unstable housing. I found a room in a house shared by 4 other women. The landlord accepted cash and ignored the mold spreading across the bathroom ceiling. My bedroom barely fit a mattress, but the door locked. I retrieved Aunt Ruth's smaller tools from storage and began taking repair jobs through classified advertisements. Loose cabinets, broken closet rods, damaged porch steps, shelving installation. I charged too little because I was afraid people would choose someone else. I apologized when clients changed the job after I arrived. I worked evenings after my grocery shifts and studied Ruth's notebooks at night. The job that changed my life began with a bathroom floor that had nearly collapsed beneath an elderly woman named Evelyn Hart. Evelyn was 76, recently widowed, and furious that her adult children wanted to move her into assisted living after one fall. She hired me to replace several cracked tiles. When I removed them, I found water damage around the toilet and rot extending beneath the vanity. A dishonest contractor could have covered the problem and collected payment. I showed Evelyn the damage and explained that I was not qualified to repair the structural portion alone. She asked whether I knew someone who was. I called every contractor whose number appeared in Ruth's notebooks until a man named Marcus Reed agreed to inspect the floor. Marcus owned a small remodeling company outside Bowling Green. He was 60, broad-shouldered, quiet, and unimpressed by excuses. He examined the damage, then asked why I had removed the tiles so carefully. "Some of them are original," I said. "Evelyn wants to reuse what is not broken. Most people would smash everything and sell her a new floor. Most people are not paying for it." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he asked whether I wanted weekend work. Marcus taught me framing, plumbing basics, estimating, scheduling, permit requirements, and the difference between improving a house and forcing the owner to live inside someone else's taste. More importantly, he introduced me to accessible design. He had begun modifying homes after his wife developed multiple sclerosis. "People think accessibility means making a home look medical," he said. "What they really want is dignity without danger." I understood that immediately. I knew what it felt like to be told you no longer fit inside a home. I wanted to help people stay. I worked for Marcus for 7 years. I returned to school part-time and earned certifications in construction management and aging-in-place design. I learned to read contracts, document changes, and refuse clients who treated workers like servants. Marcus made me correct my estimates whenever I undervalued my labor. "You are still charging like a girl asking permission to be here," he told me. "Price the work like the person responsible for getting everyone home safely." When his health began failing, he sold me one of his vans and referred smaller projects. I founded second-story renovations from a rented storage bay with one employee, a carpenter named Luis Ortega, who had 3 daughters and no patience for self-pity. Our first major project involved converting a downstairs den into a bedroom for a retired nurse, whose husband could no longer climb stairs. The couple cried when we finished. Not because the room was luxurious, but because staying together had become possible again. Word spread. Adult children hired us to modify their parents' homes. Hospitals included our information in discharge packets. Realtors called when clients needed houses adapted before moving in. I hired an occupational therapist as a consultant, then a project manager, then an office coordinator. I trained employees to speak to older clients directly instead of addressing only their children. I required written schedules, clean job sites, and one rule Marcus had taught me: no one loses dignity because their body or circumstances changed. By 32, Second Story had 23 employees, 5 vans, a design studio, and more work than we could accept. I moved the company to Tennessee after opening a Nashville division and purchased a 12-acre property 40 minutes outside the city. The property had a renovated farmhouse, a detached workshop large enough for our custom carpentry team, a gravel lot for the vans, and a small 2-bedroom cottage near the tree line. The previous owner had installed a gate because he stored landscaping equipment on the property. I upgraded the security system, not because I expected my family to appear, but because the workshop contained expensive tools and client materials. I moved into the farmhouse with one bed, a coffee maker, Aunt Ruth's notebooks, and the same chipped blue mug I had used while sleeping in shared housing. On my first night, I walked through every room, switching lights on and off. I opened the refrigerator even though it contained only eggs, water, and takeout containers. I stood inside the guest bedroom and cried because nobody had assigned it to someone who mattered more. The cottage remained empty for 6 months while I decided how to use it. Part of me considered renting it. Another part wanted to create temporary employee housing for people facing emergencies. I remembered arriving at work after sleeping in my car, terrified someone would notice. Eventually, we created a 90-day housing program for employees escaping unsafe homes, facing sudden eviction, or relocating for work. The arrangement included written rules, privacy, reduced rent, and no expectation of gratitude. I named it Ruth's Cottage. The sign beside the door simply read Ruth, because Aunt Ruth would have hated anything sentimental. My family learned about the property through social media. We rarely spoke, but Lauren watched my company page. She had married Derek, had 3 children, and moved between rental houses whenever another landlord became unreasonable. Derek worked in appliance sales, then home security, then cryptocurrency consulting, then nothing he described clearly. Lauren sold beauty products online and posted heavily edited photographs about motherhood, marriage, and building generational wealth. My mother shared every post. She had retired from the orthodontist's office and moved into a 2-bedroom condo outside Lexington. My father died suddenly from a heart attack when I was 29. I attended the funeral and stood in the back. My mother cried against Lauren's shoulder. When she saw me, she said, "Your father worried about you until the end." It was meant to make me feel loved. It made me angry. Worry that never becomes action is often just guilt wearing softer clothing. After the service, Lauren asked whether my business was actually doing well, or whether the social media page simply looked professional. I told her we were stable. She asked whether I could hire Derek as a project supervisor. Derek had never supervised construction. When I said no, she rolled her eyes. "You always act like helping family would somehow diminish what you built." That was the last conversation we had for nearly 4 years. Then, 3 days before Thanksgiving, my mother called. I did not answer. She left a voicemail saying the family had experienced a setback and needed to discuss a temporary arrangement. I deleted it. Lauren sent a message an hour later. Mom says you are ignoring her. We are in a serious situation. Derek's company closed unexpectedly, and our landlord is selling. We need somewhere to stay through the holidays. You have that cottage sitting empty most of the time. This should not even be a discussion. Ruth's cottage was not empty. A newly hired designer named Kayla and her 6-year-old son were living there after leaving an abusive relationship in another state. Their presence was confidential. I replied, "The cottage is occupied and is part of an employee housing program. My home is not available. Please contact local housing services or relatives closer to you." Lauren responded immediately, "You are really choosing employees over your own nieces and nephew?" My mother followed with, "The way you hold on to the past is unhealthy. We all made sacrifices. Lauren has children, and you have more space than one person could ever need." I did not reply. The next day, Lauren posted a vague message online. "It is amazing how success reveals who people really are. Some women build big houses because they have small hearts." My cousin sent me a screenshot with 3 question marks. I ignored it. On Thanksgiving Eve, I stayed late at the office preparing payroll and coordinating our annual employee dinner. We held it on the property every Thanksgiving afternoon for staff members without nearby family or who preferred our company to the people related to them. The workshop was decorated with string lights and long tables. Louise smoked 2 turkeys. Our office coordinator made enough mashed potatoes for a small army. Kayla and her son were helping decorate cookies inside Ruth's cottage. At 4:30, the gate intercom sounded. I opened the camera feed and saw my mother standing beside a rented moving truck. Lauren, Derek, and the children waited behind her. Boxes filled the truck. Mattresses were strapped to the roof. They had not come to talk. They had come to move in. "Open it, Morgan," my mother said. "The children are tired." "Why are you here, Morgan? Do not do this through a speaker. Open the gate." "You were told my home is not available." Lauren pushed past her. "The cottage has 2 bedrooms. We checked the listing photos from when you bought the property. The girls can share 1 room, and Mason can sleep in the living room. Someone already lives there." "Then move them into the main house." I stared at the screen. "No." Derek stepped toward the camera. "We drove 4 hours because Carol said you would calm down once you saw the kids." My mother looked irritated that he had revealed the plan. "I said Morgan would not leave children stranded before Thanksgiving. You brought them here without permission." Lauren lifted her youngest daughter, who had begun crying. "Look at her. She is exhausted." "Then take her somewhere safe." "This is safe. It is not your home." My mother lowered her voice. "Morgan, the neighbors and your employees do not need to see this. Open the gate, help your sister unload, and we can discuss expectations privately." "There will be no unloading." Lauren stared into the camera. "You live alone in a 4-bedroom house. That does not make the bedrooms public property. You do not have children. That does not make my life less important." "No one said that. You say it every time you explain why I should surrender something." Derek walked along the gate, looking toward the workshop. "The shop has heat, right? I could set up a desk in there until I find something." "You are not entering my workshop." He laughed. "You act like we are strangers." "Strangers usually ask before arriving with a moving truck." My mother's expression changed. The pleading disappeared, leaving the woman who had sent me away 15 years earlier. "I did not raise you to be selfish. You raised me to believe Lauren's needs were emergencies, and mine were character-building exercises. We gave you independence. You gave my bedroom to her boyfriend, and let me sleep in a car." Lauren rolled her eyes. "Here we go. You always exaggerate everything." "Where did I sleep?" "You had friends. For 13 nights. Where did I sleep after that?" She looked away. "That was your decision." "No, my decision was surviving it." The oldest child, 11-year-old Sophie, was watching the conversation with growing discomfort. I felt terrible for all 3 children. They were not responsible for the adults who had brought them. But compassion for children could not require surrendering my home to their parents. "There is a family hotel 12 miles from here," I said. "I will pay for 1 room tonight so the children can rest." Tomorrow, you need another plan. Lauren's face twisted. You want us in a motel while you sit in this huge house? I am offering one night because the children should not suffer for this decision. We are not charity cases. Then stop demanding charity. Derek struck the metal gate with his palm. Open it. I ended the intercom connection and called my operations manager, Nora Bennett, who lived in a smaller house near the property entrance. Nora had spent 15 years managing commercial construction sites and could remain calm while grown men shouted inches from her face. She approached the inside of the gate with our contracted security officer. The officer did not display a weapon or threaten anyone. He simply stood beside the keypad and informed them that the property was private, the gate would remain closed, and the moving truck needed to clear the access road. I walked down the driveway, but stayed inside. My mother saw me and pressed both hands against the bars. Morgan, look at your nieces. I did. The girls were cold and confused. Mason was sitting on a suitcase with his hood pulled over his head. I am looking, I said. That is why I offered a hotel. They need family. They need adults who make plans before loading their beds into a truck. Lauren shouted. You love this. You have waited your whole life to make us feel small. I did not invite you here. You knew we were desperate. Desperation does not create consent. Derek started the truck but did not move. He told Nora she was interfering in private family business. Nora replied, The owner has said no. There is nothing private or complicated about that. My mother whispered, Your father would be ashamed of you. The sentence hit exactly where she intended. For 1 second, I saw my father beside the storage unit, handing me a padlock instead of a house key. Then the pain changed shape. Dad spent his life staying silent because confronting you made him uncomfortable, I said. I am not continuing that tradition. The moving truck finally pulled away. My mother's car followed. I remained beside the gate until the taillights disappeared. I did not feel powerful. I felt sick. Setting a boundary does not erase love, history, or the child inside you who still wants someone to turn around and choose differently. Nora touched my shoulder. You did the right thing. It does not feel right. That is because you were trained to experience self-protection as guilt. We walked back toward the workshop. Kayla stood near Ruth's cottage, holding her son's hand. She had seen enough to understand what happened. Do we need to leave? She asked. The fear in her voice broke my heart. No. This is your home for as long as the agreement says it is. Nobody is removing you because my relatives arrived. Her shoulders lowered. That moment clarified everything. Opening the gate would not simply have inconvenienced me. It would have displaced a woman and child who had entered Ruth's cottage through trust, rules, and consent. My family considered their need more legitimate because they shared my blood. I did not. The next morning, Thanksgiving Day, Lauren posted photographs of the children sitting beside the moving truck. She wrote, My successful sister left 3 children outside a locked gate in freezing weather because punishing our mother matters more to her than family. She did not mention the hotel offer. She did not mention arriving without permission. She did not mention the occupied cottage. Within hours, relatives began messaging. An aunt who had not spoken to me since my father's funeral said, Whatever happened in childhood, children should come first. A cousin wrote, You could at least let them stay through Christmas. My mother left a voicemail saying she had never imagined I would become this cold. Derek posted that I used armed guards to threaten children. Our security officer had carried a radio and a flashlight. I wrote one public statement on my personal page. Yesterday, relatives arrived at my private residence with a moving truck after being told in writing that neither my home nor company housing was available. The employee cottage they demanded is occupied by a staff member and her child. I offered to pay for a hotel room so the children could rest. The offer was refused. No child was threatened, and no one was denied emergency shelter after asking respectfully. My family attempted to move into an occupied property without consent. I will not discuss the matter further. Lauren responded beneath the post. You always hide behind professional language because you do not know how to love people. I deleted the comment and blocked her. At noon, employees began arriving for Thanksgiving dinner. I almost canceled. My face felt swollen from crying, and I worried everyone would look at me as the woman who had turned away children. Instead, Luis handed me a plate and said, "Eat before you start fixing something nobody asked you to fix." Nora placed my phone inside a desk drawer. Kayla brought sweet potatoes. Her son showed me a paper turkey he had made, with each feather containing the name of someone who made him feel safe. My name was on the blue feather. I had to walk outside for several minutes before I could speak. Safety had once seemed like a luxury reserved for people whose families behaved correctly. Now I understood it could be created deliberately. We ate at long tables inside the workshop. Employees brought partners, roommates, neighbors, and anyone who might otherwise spend the holiday alone. People laughed beside stacks of lumber and half-finished cabinets. Children drew pictures on protective floor paper. Nobody asked why my biological family was absent. Nobody required me to explain why the people present still counted. At 3:15, the gate alarm sounded again. This time, the side service entrance had been opened with an old contractor code. The code should have been inactive, but a software update had accidentally restored several archived access numbers. The camera showed Derek driving the moving truck toward the workshop, while my mother followed in her car. Lauren sat in the passenger seat filming through the windshield. They had not returned to ask. They had returned to create a scene in front of witnesses. Nora stopped the truck near the equipment yard by parking one company van across the lane. Our security officer approached and ordered Derek to stop. I walked outside with Luis and two project managers behind me. Employees watched from the workshop doors. Derek climbed from the cab. "You wanted witnesses," he shouted. "Now explain to everyone why you are making your nieces homeless." Lauren stepped out holding her phone toward me. "Go ahead, Morgan. Tell your staff how compassionate you are." My mother opened the rear door and ushered the children out. Sophie looked mortified. Mason was crying. The youngest girl clutched a stuffed rabbit. I wanted to shield them from every adult present, including the adults related to me. "Stop recording the children," I said. Lauren kept filming. "People deserve the truth. Then turn the camera toward yourself and explain why you entered using an unauthorized code after being told no." Mom remembered the code from the invitation you sent her to Dad's memorial dinner here. That invitation was 2 years ago. So you admit she had permission, for one evening, 2 years ago. A dinner invitation is not permanent access to my property. Derek walked toward the workshop. Luis stepped in front of him. "Do not touch me," Derek said. "Then stop moving toward our tools," Luis replied. My mother came close enough for me to smell her perfume. "You are making this uglier than it needs to be. You drove through a service gate during an employee Thanksgiving dinner. Because you refused to act like family. Family does not require breaking through side entrances." Lauren swung the phone toward the workshop. "Look at all this space. She has an entire building full of people who are not related to her, but her own nieces cannot sleep here. This is a workplace. There are couches. They are not beds. Children can sleep anywhere for a few nights." The words echoed strangely. 15 years earlier, my mother had said almost the same thing when I asked where I would sleep. I looked at her. She heard it too. "A few nights," I repeated. "Is that what you told yourself about me?" My mother's face hardened. "This is not about you. It has always been about who you decided deserved a room." Sophie suddenly spoke. "Mom said this was our new house." Every adult became silent. Lauren turned toward her. "Sophie, go stand with Grandma. You said Aunt Morgan had agreed but was being dramatic." "Not now. You said if we brought our things, she would have to let us stay." Lauren lowered the phone. The live performance had been interrupted by a child telling the truth. Sophie looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Did you say we could live here?" "No," I said gently. "I told your mom the house and cottage were not available. I am sorry you were told something different." "Where are we going?" she asked. That question did what my mother's accusations could not. It made me ache. I crouched so we were closer to eye level. "The adults are going to make a plan." "You did nothing wrong." Lauren grabbed Sophie's shoulder. Do not speak to my daughter like I am irresponsible. You drove her through a locked service gate after lying about where she was moving, my mother said. Enough. We are already here. Let the children eat. We can discuss rooms afterward. There will be no discussion about rooms. You would send them away hungry on Thanksgiving? No. The children may eat if they want. You, Lauren, and Derek are leaving the property immediately afterward. The truck leaves now. Derek laughed. You think you can separate us from our own children? No. I think you brought them here because you believed I would be afraid to enforce a boundary in front of them. Lauren raised her phone again. Everyone is hearing how controlling you are. One of my employees, a quiet electrician named Ben, spoke from the workshop door. We are hearing you refuse to accept no. Another employee said, my family used my kids that way too. Nora told Derek the police had been called because of the unauthorized entry. I hated that it had reached that point. But safety cannot depend on the person violating it suddenly developing insight. My mother hissed. You called the police on your own sister? I called because people entered my commercial property after being denied access. You could ask them to leave. I did, yesterday. The children were taken inside with Kayla while the adults waited near the truck. They ate turkey, macaroni, and cheese, and pie with other children. Nobody questioned them. Nobody used them to deliver messages. Lauren remained outside, furious that I had removed her audience. When 2 deputies arrived, I showed them the gate recordings, written messages, and camera footage. There was no dramatic arrest. I did not want one. Derek was instructed to leave, and the unauthorized code was documented. The deputies warned all 3 adults that returning without written permission would lead to trespassing charges. My mother told one deputy I was emotionally unstable because of old family issues. He looked toward the workshop, the employees, the security system, and the detailed access log. Then he said, Ma'am, her emotions do not give you permission to enter her property. It was the first time I had heard an authority figure tell my mother that my feelings did not invalidate my boundary. The moving truck left before sunset. My mother took the children with her. Before Sophie climbed into the car, she hugged me quickly. I am sorry we came in the wrong way, she whispered. You do not have to apologize for the adults, I told her. Lauren heard and glared at me. I watched the vehicles disappear for the second time in 24 hours. This time, I did not feel guilty. I felt grief for the children and anger toward the people teaching them that love meant forcing doors. My mother, Lauren, and Derek stayed in a weekly rate hotel for 10 days. I learned through relatives that Derek had lost his job 3 months earlier but had hidden it while continuing to spend money. Their landlord had not suddenly decided to sell. They had received multiple notices after failing to pay rent. My mother had known for weeks but refused to let them stay in her condo permanently because the homeowners association limited long-term guests. She was willing to donate my home before inconveniencing her own life. The family messages continued. They made mistakes, but you have resources. The children need stability. A successful single woman does not require 12 acres. Aunt Ruth would have wanted you to help. That last message came from my cousin Melissa, who had sold several pieces of Ruth's furniture without telling me. I replied, Aunt Ruth taught me that a damaged structure cannot be repaired by pretending the load is distributed fairly. Do not use her name to pressure me again. Then I blocked her. 2 weeks later, my mother requested a meeting at a restaurant halfway between Nashville and Lexington. She said she wanted to apologize without cameras, children, or moving trucks. I nearly refused. Nora asked what outcome I expected. I want her to understand, I said. She may understand perfectly, Nora replied. She may simply believe understanding should not limit what she can demand. I agreed to 1 hour in a public restaurant. My mother arrived early, wearing a navy sweater and the expression of someone preparing to forgive me. She ordered coffee and began with, We both made mistakes. What mistake did I make? You escalated the situation. You arrived with a moving truck because we believed you would not abandon children once you saw them. You mean you believed using children would override my answer. Do you hear yourself? Using children. Override. You talk like a contract. Clear language makes manipulation less effective. She pressed her lips together. Lauren is not like you. I know. She has always needed more support, and I was assigned less because I needed it quietly. You were strong. You made strength the price of receiving nothing. She looked toward the window. I was a single mother for years while your father traveled. I did what I could. You had a husband, 2 incomes, and a house. I slept in a car while you bought Lauren baby furniture. We believed you were staying with friends. For how long? She did not answer. Did you call them? No. Did you call me? You were angry. I was homeless. Her eyes filled with tears. I cannot change that. I am not asking you to change it. Then what do you want? For you to stop using what happened as proof that your decision was good for me. You became successful. I also became unable to ask for help without feeling ashamed. I slept beside the front door for years because part of me expected another person to decide I could not stay. I worked while sick because losing income felt like losing shelter. I bought a gated property because safety still felt temporary. Success does not erase the injury. Are you blaming everything on me? No. I am refusing to give you credit for what I built after you hurt me. She wiped her eyes. I came to ask for one thing. There it was. Not an apology. An opening request disguised as reconciliation. What? Lauren needs help with a deposit. Derek has an interview. If they can secure a townhouse, they can stabilize. You could loan them $8,000 without feeling it. I leaned back. You drove here to ask for money. I drove here to repair the family and find a practical solution. Those are not the same thing. Morgan, $8,000 is nothing to you. It is salary, materials, insurance, and hours of work. It is not nothing. They are your family. They called me heartless publicly, entered my property twice, lied to their children, and demanded my employees home. They were desperate. Desperation explains behavior. It does not erase character. My mother's expression became cold. Then why did you come? To learn whether you were capable of apologizing without asking me to finance the next crisis. I am apologizing. For what? For the way everything happened. What happened? She stared at me. You want me to humiliate myself. I want you to name what you did. I made a difficult decision when Lauren was pregnant. You removed me from my home. You were 19. You knew I had nowhere safe. You figured it out. That is not an apology. She placed money beside her coffee cup and stood. You have become impossible. No, I have become unavailable for the role you assigned me. One day, you will need family. I needed family at 19. Her face tightened. Your father would hate what you have become. I stood too. Dad hated conflict more than he loved protecting me. I am done treating his silence as wisdom. I left the restaurant before the hour ended. In the parking lot, I sat inside my truck and shook. Boundaries did not make me invulnerable. My mother still knew which sentences reached the youngest parts of me. The difference was that pain no longer made her right. I blocked her number that afternoon. I sent one final email to Lauren. I will not provide housing, loans, employment, tools, vehicles, business contacts, or access to my property. I will not respond through relatives or social media. You may send the children birthday cards or updates through a post office box if they want contact when they are older. Do not use them to request money or access. Any future relationship requires a direct acknowledgement that you entered my property without permission and lied to the children about my consent. Until then, there will be no contact. Lauren replied. Enjoy dying alone in your giant empty house. I read it twice, then looked through the workshop window. Luis was teaching an apprentice to install drawer slides. Kayla's son was drawing at a desk. Nora was arguing with a supplier on the phone. My house was not empty. My life simply was not organized around people who believed shared DNA entitled them to occupy it. Over the following year, second-story renovations expanded the Ruth's Cottage program. We partnered with a local nonprofit and added 2 small apartments above a new training facility. Employees facing emergencies could stay for up to 6 months while saving money and creating a housing plan. The program did not require anyone to share private details. Nobody had to perform gratitude at company events. Nobody lost housing because a more favored person suddenly needed the room. Kayla eventually rented her own apartment and became one of our strongest designers. On the day she moved out, she placed the cottage key in my hand and said, "This is the first home I ever left because I was ready, not because someone wanted me gone." I had to turn away for a moment. 6 months later, Sophie sent a letter to the company's post office box. She wrote that her parents had separated after Derek lost another job and blamed Lauren for failing to convince me. Lauren and the children were living with my mother. Sophie said she did not expect a reply, but wanted me to know she remembered what I had said. "You do not have to apologize for the adults." She ended with, "I think Mom uses us to make people say yes. I do not like it." I answered carefully. I told her none of the conflict was her fault. I said she could write if she wanted, but I would not discuss money, housing, or her parents. We exchanged occasional letters. I did not try to turn her against Lauren. Children deserve adults who do not recruit them into wars. When Sophie turned 13, she asked whether she could visit with a trusted aunt. I agreed to meet them at a public cafe. She had Lauren's eyes but watched people the way I had as a child, measuring the room before speaking. She asked why I had not opened the gate. I told her the truth without unnecessary details. "Because I had already said no, and your parents came believing your presence would make my answer less important. Would you have let us stay if Mom had asked first?" No, the cottage was occupied, and my home was not available. But I would have helped her contact housing resources before she loaded a truck. Sophie nodded. She said you hated us. I did not hate you. I hated that you were placed in the middle. Do you hate her? I considered lying. No, I do not trust her. Those are different things. Sophie looked relieved. Before leaving, she gave me a small wooden birdhouse she had built at school. The roof was uneven, and one nail had split the side. I placed it in my workshop beside Aunt Ruth's oldest hand plane. Lauren sent an angry message through my mother when she discovered the visit. I did not respond. By then, I understood that another person's anger did not automatically create an emergency inside my life. 3 years after the Thanksgiving Gate incident, I hosted our company dinner in the same workshop. Ruth's cottage was occupied by a warehouse employee recovering from surgery. The apartments above the training center housed 2 apprentices, and a project coordinator rebuilding her finances after divorce. Sophie attended with my cousin Amber, who had become a reliable adult in her life. She helped Kayla's son hang paper decorations. The tables were crowded. The farmhouse kitchen was loud. Every bedroom in my house was still mine to use or leave empty. Nobody measured my worth by whether I surrendered one. After dinner, I walked to the front gate alone. The security camera had been replaced, and the scratches Derek left near the old keypad were almost invisible beneath new paint. I remembered my mother's face outside the bars. For years, I believed that scene was the moment I rejected my family. It was not. The rejection had happened 15 years earlier, when they decided my need for shelter mattered less than Lauren's comfort. The gate was simply where I stopped participating in that rejection. People love saying family should always have an open door. They rarely ask who owns the door, who paid for the house, who cleaned up after the last invasion, or whether the person standing outside has ever respected the word no. An open door can represent love. It can also represent a home where the owner is never allowed to feel safe. I no longer believe forgiveness requires access. I no longer believe compassion means handing destructive people the tools to dismantle what you built. I can care that Lauren struggles without giving her my guest room. I can love my nieces and nephew without letting their parents use them as keys. I can remember my mother as the woman who packed my lunches in elementary school and still refused to forget the woman who knew I slept in a car. Human beings contain contradictions. Boundaries exist because contradictions do not cancel consequences. My revenge was not watching my mother leave the gate. It was not the police warning, the blocked numbers, or the moment Lauren's online story collapsed. My revenge was building a life where I no longer needed the people who abandoned me to admit I had been worth keeping. My revenge was turning spare rooms into temporary homes with written promises nobody could change during dinner. My revenge was seeing employees leave Ruth's cottage with savings, keys, and choices. My revenge was learning that an empty bedroom does not mean someone else has earned it. Sometimes emptiness is peace. Sometimes a locked gate is healing made visible. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can say to family is not, "I forgive you," or "I hate you," or even "you hurt me." Sometimes it is simply, "You cannot live here." So tell me honestly, if the family who once made you homeless arrived years later with children, boxes, and nowhere else to go, would you open the gate for the children's sake? Or would letting them in only teach everyone that your boundaries disappear whenever enough guilt is applied?